anyone not used to my channel, one of my favorite things to do is to watch action-adventure genres and anime. And I don't mean action-adventure as in like Hunter x Hunter, which it is definitely action-adventure. But I mean like the fantasy-style action-adventure. I liked Sword Art Online, at least for the first season. I love Berserk, by the way. That's like my favorite shit ever. I could eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. But, you know, I started watching Overlord. I really liked Overlord. It has that fantasy style, kind of like an RPG, right? I liked that show for a little bit. It's kind of like a power fantasy. I enjoy power fantasies. It just ends up kind of plateauing for me at a certain point, and I'm just like, eh. Sword Art Online was pretty good. It was good for the first season. Then it kind of got boring for me as well. And for some reason, these fantasy style shows where they're like in an RPG style environment always end up boring me at a certain point. Like Black Clover was kind of like, I think that one's one of the better ones right now, even though it is kind of hit and miss on certain seasons. When I was reincarnated as a slime, that's pretty interesting for a little bit. You know, like the thing with the fantasy style genre is like they do the same shit over and over again, and it ends up getting really boring, and you have to have something that differentiates yourself from everything. And I feel like they haven't really figured that out yet, you know? So a lot of these fantasy style shows, they end up working for a little bit once you start getting to know the characters and everything like that, but then like once you start kind of, the seams start unraveling, everything kind of feels the same. The same thing happened, for example, Goblin Slayer. I really liked Goblin Slayer in the beginning. It kind of felt like Berserk. And then after you start watching it and everything like that, it was really spicy in the beginning. It was like really controversial and stuff. And everybody was like, oh my god, it's so controversial. There was like a rape scene or whatever. And then like Berserk's over here like, what about me? Because if you know about Berserk. But anyways, so as I'm watching these shows, I kind of figured like they all kind of run into the same problem over and over again. And they never... They always do the same thing once the seams start unraveling and everything starts kind of going through that normal fantasy genre loop. How I find new shows to watch is I'll get bored out of a certain show. For example, right now I'm watching One Piece. I actually really enjoy One Piece. It's not boring me actually at all. It's really good, and I'm going through like the 900 episode climb, and after like 300 episodes, I'm like, I need to like change the flavor a little bit. I have to look for something else to watch. So yesterday, in fact, I decided to go ahead and go to Funimation and look for something new. So usually how I go to Funimation, so here's Funimation, here's all the series right now. I'm looking around for a particular series I might like. So usually what I do is I'll click the action-adventure genre, which is nice, and I'll go ahead and go to the most popular, just to see what's going on, what people are liking. And I know all of these shows that are here right now, except for The Rising of the Shield Hero. And I was like, what the fuck is this? So I was like, this is new, and it's like one of the more popular ones right now, so I'll go ahead and watch it. And I clicked it. Decided to watch it yesterday. And let me just tell you, because there's going to be some spoilers in this. It's not really a review. It's just like my first impressions of the show, right? And basically the genre, or the gist of the show is that this kid that is basically like a high school kid, he's this nerdy kid, he plays RPG video games, gets sucked into this weird magical book in a library, and he gets sent off in this different realm. So it's not like an RPG video game. Everybody in this realm is real, like everybody has their own lives, and people can die, and there's no like resurrection and things like that. But generally speaking, he's like in an RPG style video game when he gets there. He happens to be in this prophecy where there's these 4 special heroes. I think there's one that's the spear hero, the archer hero, the sword hero, and then there's a character called the shield hero. And these 4 heroes are supposed to get together and be the, what would you call it? They're supposed to save the realm from these 4 big waves that come in that are supposed to destroy this realm. So it's like very generic right now. It's like these dark evil monsters from this other realm are coming to destroy us. You happen to be the chosen prophecy warriors that we need. Blah, 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 blah. Why don't you go ahead and help us or whatever? And you're going to be these magical, super strong beings and stuff like that. So already off the bat, I'm thinking in my head, like, okay, well, this is like really, 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 really obvious what's going to happen, right? the guy, he's this legendary. He's gonna be this legendary warrior, so he's gonna have all these superpowers that nobody else has. All the chicks in the show, because this is what I was assuming is that it's gonna be like a power fantasy. All the chicks in the show are gonna dig him because he's like, he's gonna be like royalty. He's gonna be more badass than everybody. He's gonna be like the shit in the town, right? And I was like, all right, well, he's the shield warrior, so he has to fight with a shield. He can't fight with a normal sword because that's his ability. Basically, his abilities are he can shield people and he has support abilities, but his character in general can't do really any damage. He can like fist fight, but like fist fighting does no damage whatsoever. He can take on like level 1 monsters or something. So I was like, all right, that's different, I guess. I mean, we'll just keep watching this to play out. It doesn't seem that much different though. So I was like, maybe that's the niche thing, is that he's using a shield, right? And I was like, all right, I'm in. I'll keep watching it. So as I'm watching it, right, everything goes exactly as I think. Every fucking thing goes exactly as I think. So he ends up spawning in this world, and he has the other companions with him. So I was like, okay, those are going to be his companions that he's going to have to like learn to fight with and things like that. All right, cool. He ends up meeting the king, and he ends up meeting the princess. And the princess or whatever is like all hitting on him, and everybody wants to everyone wants to talk to the new group of people, and the king's being really nice, and he's gonna he gives him like a really nice house to live in. Like they're gonna go train together. Like everything's going like exactly according to plan, what I had in my head. Right? There's gonna be I'm gonna go ahead and say spoiler warning. If you don't want any spoilers in the show, I'm just gonna be spoiling like the first episode. Right? But it kind of explains why I'm actually interested in the show. So bear with me here. If you don't want any spoilers for this show and you want to go in completely blind, pause right here, go watch the first episode, then come back to me. But if you don't give a shit, then just kind of stay here, and I'll go ahead and explain why I think this show is actually pretty cool. So this show is a deconstruction of the fantasy style genre. So basically what that means is that they took the fantasy style genre and they basically flipped all the tropes on top of itself. Normally in these fantasy style shows, the main character is like this really, really good guy, right? Like he's like, I'm here for truth and justice, just like what's his name? Kirito? I can't pronounce, I don't remember his name. The guy from Sword Art Online, where she's like one of the worst heroes, I think, in a show, because he's too good boy. Like he's like a Boy Scout basically. And I don't like that in my main characters, obviously, because I love Berserk so much. So in the beginning, our main character is like this like white knight, right? And I'm like, all right, I don't really like our main character that much. Goes on, he meets this girl, this chick, and she's like obviously like, oh, I'm like the kind of cutesy chick that is going to be hanging around the main character and is probably going to be love interest. I'm like, all right, got you, love interest right there. The other characters are like pretty nice, and they all have their own kind of personalities, and I'm like, oh, they're going to be like there's going to be the funny guy right here, there's going to be the serious guy right here, there's going to be like the intellectual guy right here. Okay, they're all going to be, they're the good guys, gotcha. And then the bad guys and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, the bad guys are going to be real easy. Like, they're going to be like these normal average, like they're like the darkness, something really general in the sense of like bad people, bad monsters, or whatever. So I was like, all right, I'm already catching that on too. As the show goes on, and I'm sorry I'm drum rolling this so much, I'm like, this is going to be like the most boring fucking general, like cliche fucking show ever, right? I mean, the only thing different about it is that the guy's using a shield instead of a sword or some bullshit like that. I'm like, that is like minimum bullshit changes. And basically what happens is the chick in the beginning, the princess, she's like a warrior princess, by the way, she's hanging out with him, and she's like the only companion with him. I'm like, okay, they're gonna be companions, love interest, blah blah blah. And everything goes exactly according to my plan, or what my thought is. And they train all day. He's leveling up. He's doing his own like bullshit stuff that he needs to do to like level up and become stronger as a hero, because that's what RPGs are like. And they go out to eat together, and they're going out to eat, and everything's fine. She's like, I'll order this food, you order that food, and she's like flirting with him real hard. Like she wants to jump on his pole, and I'm getting it because he's like the shield hero. He's like the legendary person. I'm like, all right, nice. I wish I was in that position, I guess. Like power fantasy, I guess. And then this is where the show just fucking makes a 360, not 360, that would be right back to the same spot where we're at. No, 180, it goes complete 180. And basically what happens is he wakes up the next day. There's clothes of the princess or whatever in his room, basically like almost like he had sex with her, right? He walks out and he's like, what the fuck's this about? There's knights there ready to basically just plow him, like just like attack him or whatever. She is acting like she got raped by him. Okay, so there's like this sexual allegation against him that he molested her and like forced himself upon her, right? And this is the princess, so she's, you know, she's royalty. So that's like a, you know, Griffith knows what's up. If you guys will catch my reference if you're a Berserk fan. And I was like, what is this? This is so weird, right? So what happens is he kind of goes to court over this. And he goes to like the king or whatever, and everybody in the kingdom is like spiting him because he's like a rapist and a pedophile or whatever. And normally in this fantasy world, anybody who is a rapist or a pedophile or any of those sort of things gets executed on the spot, just wank, dead, right? But because he's the shield hero and they need him for these battles of these like demon horde waves, right? They're not going to do any of this to him. They're not going to even throw him in jail. What his punishment basically is, they crucify his name. They just destroy his name and they call him a rapist. And they send this word across the entire land. So everybody thinks of him as like this rapist, like hungry predator, right? And he's known as like the worst person in this area, and nobody wants to hang out with him. So like if he decides to go to a hotel to like hang out, they won't allow him to be in the hotel. If he wants to purchase something, you know, let's say $3, it'll be like $25. And he ends up having to like basically go to like the bottom. Like he basically becomes like a bum, right? Because nobody will accept him. The king won't give him anything. You know, they used to have a really nice room. None of that anymore. Nobody wants to take him in because they think he's a rapist. All this crazy shit happens to him. You know, they ruined and smeared his name completely. So it's weird. So now he's in this like dilemma where he has to level up, right? And his character is based solely upon supporting people. He can't actually do any damage himself. So he can't kill monsters by himself. So he can't level up because the only way to level up is to kill monsters. So he can't kill any monsters because he's the shield hero. So he needs a group of people to hang out with, but nobody will hang out with him because he's considered a rapist. So what happens is, because everybody smeared him, he has to use these underhanded tactics to level up as a hero, and he ends up becoming like this like really spiteful asshole. So in the beginning he's like this really nice guy, but he ends up being a complete fucking dick, but he has to be to get what he wants. So now like what he does is, instead of being like a shield hero and being like a support character for the legendary people, he actually ends up going to a slavers group, buys a slave, and the slave has this mark on her chest or whatever that basically makes it so that if she doesn't do what her master says, so if he buys her, he becomes the master. If she doesn't do what he says, she gets electrocuted, like a dog with like one of those little electric things. And if she continues to stop or continues to not listen to him, she'll just die. So he ends up buying the slave, which is like the cheapest slave. It's this little girl, this little fox girl. I forget what her name is. I have to look it up real quick. The side chick, I guess you'd say, the slave chick that he ends up having with him. Her name's Raphtalia? Yeah, Raphtalia. Sorry, I can't pronounce that when and I think of it in my head, it just doesn't come out for some reason. But Raphtalia, right? She is a beast. I guess you call it a beast man or whatever, a beast woman. And basically, beast people. They are considered slaves and like lower class of people in this universe. So there's ones that are like more beast than man, and there's ones that are more human than beast, but they have like features of like a beast. She ends up being kind of like a furry, like those kids you see in high school that have like the ears and stuff like that, and they have the tail on or whatever. And she ends up becoming like probably one of the coolest waifu characters you could have in a show, because she's like really kind to him, and she's like a slave, but she ends up like really learning to love him as the show goes on or whatever. But I won't go through any of that, but she's a cool character. There's another character that you end up finding out. I don't want to reveal anything past the first episode, basically. But yeah, so he ends up using all these underhanded tactics to have to basically survive in this world that completely hates him. So, for example, he ends up having to duel a couple of people, and because he can't do any punching, he has like these like monsters underneath his like cloak that he uses to basically attack people, because nobody, like, he needs all this extra additional equipment to be able to fight, you know what I mean? So it's just like a really interesting show, and the fact that they turn all these tropes on top of them. Like, so for one, I thought he was going to be like the chick slayer in the show, you know what I mean? He's going to be like the harem, I guess you would say, and he ends up not being that at all. Like, none of the girls want to even speak to him because he's like a rapist, And then I was like, oh, so he's going to be like one of the really powerful characters. Technically, he's useful. He has really strong powers, but his powers come from him being able to defend and support. They're not really like aggressive type of abilities, So he's not like a super powerful character. He relies on his teammates to actually back him up, which is really cool in a show like this, because normally like the hero in the show, especially in like Sword Art Online, he didn't freaking need anybody in this show. Like, all the other characters are just kind of there to be there to like kind of hang out with him because he's such a stale character. But in this show, like, everybody's actually needed in this show to actually help him out. He's not like a Goku where he's just like, everybody move along, other than Vegeta. Vegeta and Goku don't need any help anymore because they're just so powerful. He's like the opposite of that. He needs all the help in the world because he can't fucking do anything. So that's really interesting. And then the fact that he's not a goody-goody two-shoes. So, like, for example, he'll like, there's a point where these bandits try to attack him, right? And basically he stops the bandits because he's more powerful, and he has his crew with him that are all slaves, by the way. And the bandits say, hey, well, if you don't release us, we're basically going to tell the capital, which is like the castle and stuff like that, that you were the ones that attacked us in the first place, and who's going to believe you guys, because nobody likes you guys, right? And the shield hero just goes, well, we're just going to have to kill you then. And then all of a sudden their tune completely changes, which is great, because like he just ends up learning to become a complete dick to survive in this world. So he ends up like flipping complete opposite. So in the show now, because nobody likes him, he never does anything for like the good of mankind. He'll end up doing, like, he does it technically, but he always acts like, oh, I'm not going to do it unless you pay me first, sort of deal. So he ends up being like this, like, almost like a shitty used car salesman. And it's just a really good start to a show, because in the beginning, when I was going into this, I was like, this show's going to be so fucking boring and so predictable. And then they flipped it, and they did it on purpose too, which is great. They put it all together in the beginning as if it's going to go in that direction. So they led me down this route with like breadcrumbs, and they're like, yeah, you think we're going this way. And then they fucking sucker punched me, and it was completely different. So I was actually really, really impressed by this show just for completely tricking me and doing that 180 flip. They did a 180 flip after baiting me. So it was like a real nice surprise. I was like thoroughly surprised. And I'll just go ahead and say, because I've already watched 10 episodes so far, the show is actually really good. Because sometimes in shows, something like it will kind of end up feeling like it's different in the beginning, but then they end up kind of going through like the same bullshit like they always do. And it's a little bit like that. They have to do RPG shit like they normally do. But for example, that what's different is that normally our main character in these type of fantasy style shows, they end up just going around saving people the whole time, right? And obviously he does that, that's his job or whatever. But what's different about this one is that what he does to save people is he goes around and cleans up the mess that the other heroes are doing. So, for example, one of these other heroes kills a dragon, right? Because that's his duty as a hero. He kills dragons and he saves princesses and things like that, right? So he kills the dragon, but he doesn't clean up the dead body. And this dragon is cursed so that basically when it like dies and decays, it ends up like being poisonous. So what happens is, because they didn't clean up this dragon after killing the dragon, which is like, that's like his duty is to kill a dragon, not to clean that shit up, right? It ends up bringing about a plague that ends up killing a bunch of people and making everyone sick because of this dragon. So the shield hero, being like the asshole that he is, instead of being like the hero that normally everybody thinks about, he ends up cleaning up the mess that the other heroes are too busy like doing other things, right? So they're too busy doing other things, they're not cleaning up their own mess. So he ends up like making medicine for the sick and like curing sick people and things like that. Which I know it doesn't seem like the most action-y style thing possible, but the show ends up making these arcs actually very surprising. I'm not going to go any further because I don't want to spoil anything. But like, then there's another hero, for example, that overthrows a king that was taxing the people too much, right? And you're like, okay, well, cool. Like, he was obviously corrupt or whatever. Well, this new group of people came in and ended up taxing the people even more. So he didn't like solve the problem. He just got the glory for like killing the king or whatever, this lord or whatever. And then a new lord that's even more corrupt got in the way. Now people are even more screwed. So now he ends up like feeding a group of people and cleaning up that mess. So he ends up actually helping people out that actually helps the little guys, instead of just taking the glory like in other shows and other fantasy style shows or whatever. So it's just like really awesome. Like, it's actually like completely different than what I was expecting in almost every case. Like, almost every case. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I didn't like about the show. It's a nitpick, because it doesn't break the show at all. Like, it's not like the show is still good without like, even when they do this one thing. But this one particular thing just personally annoys me, if that makes any sense. So one of the things that they do in the show is there's like a rage character. Like, the main character has a rage power, if that makes any sense. And a lot of animes have this, like Naruto turns into the nine-tailed fox, Rock Lee gets like super strong, Berserk, Guts has the Berserker armor. In One Piece, Zoro and Luffy kind of have like a like a rage moment where they just go full balls, like and they just start attacking people and doing their thing. I mean, that's like a trope in anime in general, right? The way they got to do it though to make it, I just cracked my neck. To make it different is you have to have either like a different power or a different like effect that makes you messed up. Like in One Piece, if Luffy uses a particular power, he ends up turning really small. All right, like, so like there's weird things like that when it comes to One Piece. And in Berserk, for example, he's basically the essence of rage, and Guts from Berserk, and he has this thing called the Berserker armor, and basically it makes it so that he can't tell friend from foe, right? And he is super strong and he's super fast, faster than he normally can, because basically his body has no limits at that point. But his body can still break. Basically, it releases all the limits off his body. He can't feel anything. He can't tell friend from foe. So he's more powerful in every means, but basically everything else about him, is still human, So still human, and he has like a lot of downsides. The rage overconsumes him. He can kill himself. He can actually bleed himself to death without even noticing, because he can still hurt. And the rage in that makes a lot of sense. So the character in this show, when he goes into rage mode, it is just like Berserk with Guts, except it doesn't make any sense. So in Berserk, Guts always had like a rage problem. He was always had like an anger issue, and that's like the whole point of his thing. It's like he has to know how to control his anger and his his feelings and stuff like that. And because he's such a strong person in this show, when they release all the caps off his body, he's like really powerful, and he doesn't know when to stop. That's one of the other things with Berserk. Like he's willing to sacrifice his body to win a battle. Well, with the Berserker armor, that goes to like times 10. So he will basically kill himself without even noticing. And that's why the Berserker armor is such a cool item for him, because it makes him so much more powerful than everybody, but it also has so many backdrops, like so many bad things. Like he has characters that will actually get killed by him. He can bleed to death. He doesn't, like, there's a lot of things, right? Like he ends up losing his humanity while he uses the armor. There's a lot of things like that. Now, in this one, it's not like that. He gets like this rage power that's kind of unnecessary because his character was never like a rage character. Like he always seemed pretty calm-headed, like cool-headed. He just was like pretty smart. Like he's more like a smart, witty character that like knew how to think outside the box. He wasn't like a rage character. So then he has these rage abilities. You think like, okay, so he's gonna go crazy, and the people around him will get hurt because of it. Well, not really. Like at least so far that I've seen, he kind of can just like turn that shit off whenever he wants. Like he has like a little bit where he's like a little bit out of it, but he's always like still there, you know? And I don't know. It kind of also too, like when he's in this rage mode, he can actually do damage. And like it goes against like his whole like the essence of his character, where he can like, he's not supposed to do any damage. He's supposed to like let everybody else do damage. So personally for me, I think like that aspect of him, like this with this rage mode, is like kind of stupid. It goes against his character. It's not really that cool. The style of it looks almost exactly like Berserk, and I'm just throwing that out there. I know so much about Berserk, and it's basically just like they're like copy and pasting. But the problem is they're copying and pasting, and they're not knowing like why it's so cool in Berserk, but why it doesn't make any sense with this character. So I don't know. But that's my take on the show so far. By the way, you guys, I've watched 10 episodes. Everything's been so good so far. None of the episodes have bored me, and they never meander too much. They've always had like a point to each episode. And also, what else is cool is that there's a lot of backstabbing and like politics in the show, like way more than I thought there was gonna be. And what I mean by politics, I don't mean like bullshit stuff that you don't want to hear about, but like politics in the sense of like Game of Thrones, where there's like a lot of like you know, attacking each other and like backstabbing and all this like kind of underhanded nonsense where it's like people are in the shadows and all that good stuff, the good stuff that you want, you know. And yeah, I just enjoyed it, and it super surprised me. So I just wanted to let you guys know. I'm not really gonna say this is a review. I'll review it once I watched all of it. But I just want to tell you guys that it has surprised me so far, and I'm really looking forward to watching the next episode. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and see ya! Hey, you made it to the end! That means you must enjoy my content, so go ahead and tap that subscribe button for me. And if you don't like my content, subscribe anyways. My videos are proven to make your schlong longer. Follow me on Parler if you want additional content updates, or if you want to interact with me personally. And join my BitChute channel for additional content. Thanks you guys, see ya!